as he wants, but he can't match.
All right, I don't see any new people coming into the meeting, so like I said, it's 5:34. We'll go ahead and get started. Once again, I'll introduce myself. My name's Eric Williams. I'm an assistant principal here at KTech. We're very fortunate to be at this school. I think this is probably my 19th or 20th year in education, and the last 3 years of my career have been phenomenal in terms of an experience at a high-functioning school like we have here. So welcome, everybody. As I said earlier, the real meat and potatoes of what we're doing tonight is going to start at 6 o'clock with the presentation from the colleges about the funding opportunities and how to do the FAFSA. But like I said, as a Title I school, we get about $100,000 a year to fund supplemental programs. And then one of the requirements is that we go through just sort of the rules and procedures and opportunities and rights of parents and things that come with being a Title I school. Once again, if you got here, you knew how to get to the SMORE, which is our electronic newsletter that I sent out with all of the links to the various Zooms that we're having this evening. Underneath the Title I is a little apple icon on a white background. It says there's a link to a virtual sign-in sheet. Please, if you could, go to that link, click the link, and then add your information in, and that will ensure in part that we continue to receive this big chunk of money that we use for so many important things around here at KTech. Also, I want to let you know that I am recording this, so you could, if you're having any difficulty getting to the SMORE or the sign-in sheet, just in the chat box, type your name, and that will ensure that at least I've got record of all the participants here this evening. All right. I am going to share my screen and go to the presentation that we have. I will also post this out there on the website and probably via social media as well, so that you have access to it if you need to look at it later. It's important to know also that in our lobby, we have a binder of all of our Title I information. So as a public record and a parent's right to know, you're welcome to come in at any time and request to review any of these documents, okay? I hear some noise in the background, and that's okay, but just I'd encourage everybody to mute themselves unless you have a question. That way we don't have any other disruptions, all right? I'm going to move on forward. I didn't time this presentation, so we may have a little break between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, but I have a tendency to ramble on, and so I gave myself a little cushion here. At least for the Title I portion of our meeting, this is the agenda. We'll go through the agenda for the financial aid night at 6 o'clock when we start that portion of the events. But I've already gone through the welcome and virtual sign-in sheet. In a second here, I'll go through the Title I overview, what that means. And I've got some data for you that may make you say, or, you know, raise your eyebrows a little bit, some interesting things to think about. We'll go through parents' rights under Title I, our budget and what we use our budget for in Title I, so that you can see that and talk about a little bit about the process that we developed, that we use to develop that budget. We'll talk about parent and family engagement opportunities. We're supposed to go through curriculum, so I'll point you to some resources related to that. Talk about the assessments That's always a fun topic that we offer, we do here at KTech, and you know, our communications mechanisms or channels that we have. And then we'll have an opportunity for Q&A at the end. But certainly, if you have any questions, you're welcome to just unmute yourself and interrupt me, and I'll be glad to stop and clarify or try to answer your question. Okay. All right. So I already went through the virtual sign-in sheet. Just a reminder again for those who joined us, that would be helpful. In terms of the Title I overview. So basically, Title I is a provision of the Elementary Secondary Education Act, which was, founded way back in the 50s and 60s, and then really kind of stood still for a long time and wasn't reauthorized until, George Bush reauthorized it as No Child Left Behind. The Title I has always been a provision or part of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, regardless of what year it was reauthorized. But basically, it looks at, they looked at the data and performance of our schools across the United States, and they say, all right, what are some of the distinctions that we have between high performing and low performing schools in terms of student performance? And one of those things is money. It's unfortunate, but it's a sad but true statement that unfortunately students of poverty struggle in school more than affluent students from wealth. So Title I is federal tax dollars that go into trying to ensure that students from poverty, and that is defined as students who qualify for free or reduced lunch, have the resources that they need to achieve on the same level as their more affluent, wealthier counterparts. And so, that's the reason for this funding, and that this is a provision of the law, right? That all children meet challenging state academic standards. Looking at this next slide, this is some research from 2016-17. Sorry, it's a little dated, but interestingly enough, I had some difficulty, digging up any statewide data on comparative performance of Title I schools to non-Title I schools. And you can see, based on this, from 2016-17, in terms of percent proficient on reading and mathematics assessments, these are state assessments like FCAT or FSA, you can see percentage of this subgroup of students as it compares to all students, and then based on these subgroup performance, and you can see that it's pretty clear and consistent that students, even in the state of Florida, that are economically disadvantaged, again, that means they qualify for free and reduced lunch, struggle more to be proficient on state standards than students in non-Title I schools or who do not receive free and reduced lunch. So that 70% is interesting, and it's, say, average between reading and math, because it's the percent of total. But when you look at that, it says the column here, and I'll try to highlight it with my cursor or whatever. It says percent of lowest performing 25%. So economically disadvantaged students constitute 70% of the bottom quartile of students' performance on these assessments. So that's consistent. But what I'd like to say, on behalf of the school, that Wendell Crane Technical High School is the only A-rated Title I school in Pasco County. And so we don't necessarily have those same types of struggles here that other schools experience in higher poverty areas. But, we've been able to really do some amazing things with our students here, regardless of their background and their wealth or means. Okay. I'm going to get a sip of water here because I'm getting a little scratchy throat from all this talking. You can see this is data that I pulled from that EWS, means early warning system. So it's a data collection tool that we have that's specific to KTech. And so these are our numbers, and they're from Q1 this year. And then you can kind of see what I've got highlighted here, F/R is our free and reduced lunch student population. And so they try to look for indicators of low performance for course pass rates, course grades, attendance, and discipline. And, you know, because we don't have a real discipline problem, which I'm proud to report, we're going to avoid that column because there's really nothing to report there. But you can see that in terms of ratio of students, these students to other students or to the whole, that it does rise to above 1. So that's a point of concern, right? You know, if we were approaching 1, that would mean that it had a large effect, or that the ratio was a little disproportionate to being a concern. But you can see that the district has not flagged any of those in red. So the ones that are flagged in red are the ones that rise to the level of being a concern. You can see from this that we have, of our 545 students, where did I see that before? Anyway, that's the total that we have here. 337 of those students have applied for and qualify for free or reduced lunch. That's about 62% if we round up. The way that this works in any school district in the state of Florida is the district has a set pot of Title I funds that they receive, and they do a process which is called rank and serve. So they rank schools by type, so elementary, middle, high school, and then rank those schools again by the percentage of students who receive free or reduced lunch at those schools. Excuse me. And the students at the top, the schools at the top of that list, that fall at the top of that list with the highest percentages of free and reduced lunch are the ones that are designated as Title I. That does not always mean, as it is the case with us, that they are low performing. So that's kind of how the process works. I would say that in terms of our percentage of free and reduced lunch compared to other schools like, say, Hudson, Title I schools, Hudson, Anclote, 5A, that we're low. And we're right on the border. So you might have heard Dr. Dunning send out that robocall last week or something that said, hey, please, if you're a family, you know, who maybe has been impacted by the quarantine and been out of work or whatever reason, it doesn't hurt to apply and even be denied, because there's a chance that you could receive it, and that would increase our percentage. So we actually encourage as many families as possible to at least apply for free and reduced lunch and see what happens, because again, that really does benefit us. It gives us some extra money that we use, and I'm going to go through what we use it for in just a bit here.
Yeah,
all right.
Eric, if I could add in real quick, one of the big things we're seeing this year is that we actually only have 51% right now that have applied and been accepted, which means we've got a big drop. And I think a big reason for that is the fact that families get free lunch and free breakfast no matter what right now, whether they're free and reduced or not. And so that's obviously putting a damper on people not thinking that they need to apply. They don't realize all the other stuff you're going to talk about that we get from that. So we do need to get more people to apply.
Thank you. Now I know you're on the call because I'm staring at my PowerPoint and I don't know who's there, but thank you. Yeah, that's a good point too, that we do have free lunch for everyone until January. We come back second semester, in part as a result of the quarantine, and that may have impacted our numbers. We really, really need as many people as possible to take advantage of just the application. It's real quick and simple, and it could really help your school out. In terms of parents' rights, you know that you have a right as a parent to know your child's teacher's professional qualifications. So their certification, licensing status, their degrees held, if they're on an emergency or provisional status, and of any qualifications of paraprofessionals who are assisting your student. Parents must also be notified if a teacher who's not highly qualified is instructing their child for 4 or more weeks. So you may have received a letter from your student recently that kind of outlines some of the things that if your student has a teacher who is pending their licensure or working toward that, then we notified you just recently. I'd say that unfortunately, because of the COVID and the quarantine, and then the option for teachers to, teach from home or go to work for Pasco eSchool because of their concerns or their health conditions, did impact KTech to some extent. And so I think, relative to other schools and their experiences, that we were really, really lucky here. We found some really, really good people. But some of them are still working on, getting their certification final. We have a recent graduate from USF. We have an amazing Spanish teacher who needs her transcripts translated, those types of things. So we notified you of those things. We also have to notify you of the programs. So our Title I programs, what do we do with that money? The school curriculum, assessment measures, and your students' proficiency levels. So you should receive notification of your students' performance on state assessments, as well as any other assessment. I think we do a good job of getting that information out. All right. The other thing that we do is we work together through our school advisory council, which I will promote here in a second, to develop a school parent compact, which is sort of an agreement. And I sent that out to everyone via email recently, that, you could see kind of what we're outlining, what we want to do, what our responsibilities are, what parents' responsibilities are, and what the students' responsibilities are, so that we're all literally on the same page regarding that. It's kind of an informal contract or agreement that we ask everybody to look at and sign. We usually put that out during a registration day and collect them that same day as part of the registration paperwork, because we are only allowed to invite parents of new students on campus. This year we had to send it out electronically. Okay. Here's a list of the things that it's sort of a summary. So I did some rounding here. These aren't exact figures, and of course we've done some budget amendments to move small amounts of money around. But this is what we spend our money on. So we get approximately $127,000 per year for Title I services and supports. And that's an increase of $26,000 from the previous year's allocation for our school. We use that money to fund part of our social worker's salary. So our social worker serves multiple Title I schools, and we pay a portion of that. We have an additional discipline assistant who helps us with attendance issues, because attendance is a concern that certainly impacts student performance. And also works on our Zeros Aren't Permitted, our ZAP or lunch detention program, to make sure our students are being held accountable for not turning in their assignments. PBL stands for project-based learning. So we allocated some money for materials and supplies to support teachers who are putting some projects in place for students, because the research indicates that those are high engagement type activities. College field trips, which we may not be able to do, and I think maybe that was one of the things that we amended on the budget, and some other things. Incentives for students, for student performance. The big one here too is very popular now. We have over 130 students signed up for extended school day, and that allows us to pay 6 teachers 2 days a week to work an extra 2 hours to support students, and then also to provide 3 buses and transportation back to those hub high school spots. So we're very proud of that program. That's one we think really makes a difference and is a good intervention for our students who are struggling. We have some boot camps and some other things here. PBL UDL, Universal Design for Learning, is what that UDL stands for. And so we're using that for some training for teachers so that they can up their ante with that. And I'm looking at the time, and I got to hustle on here. So yeah. We also have, and I'll promo this, the Brighter Futures Parent Night, and that's a spring event. And hopefully we're released from all of these restrictions by then and are able to have that hosted. But it's a dinner event where we bring some representatives from colleges in to talk about scholarship opportunities for our students. So it's kind of a complimentary event to tonight's event. In terms of parent and family engagement events, these are some things that we do. I don't think this is an exhaustive list, but SAC meeting, School Advisory Council monthly. Please, parents, we invite you to come join that. Our next meeting is next Wednesday, October 21st. If you would shoot me an email, I can send you the Zoom link to that so that you can join that group. It's a very important group on our campus. Parents and students really help to govern and help us with decisions that we make. Meet the Teacher Day, we already had August 19th, College Financial Aid Night, which is tonight. The Great American Teach-In, we're going to have in a month. We put some information out about that. So parents, if you have some interesting jobs, please contact me and we'll be glad to sign you up to join us virtually to present to some students that day. Prospective Parent Nights, kind of a sneak peek, we're going to have on December 8th for new parents who are interested in signing up during the choice window, school choice window. And then our Brighter Futures Parent Night, which I just talked about, that we budgeted for, and another spring sneak peek in the spring. In terms of our curriculum, really, we follow the curriculum maps that are given to us by the district, and all of that comes from these course frameworks and standards, which are available to anybody 24/7 on this site called CPALMS. It's a really good resource for students and parents as well. But if you're interested in what standards should be taught as part of a course and what they should be doing, all of that information is located there on CPALMS. In terms of assessments, this is again not an exhaustive list, but we've got what teachers do. And, research would suggest that teachers rely on those data points more than any, class assignments, quizzes, tests. We also do quarterly checks. Some of that has changed a little bit this year due to the quarantine. We used to do more quarterly checks, but we've kind of switched up this year to add some new pieces in. There's district end of course exams. So remember that all teachers, a portion of their annual evaluation is linked to their students' growth or performance. And so really every course has to have some measure of student growth or performance, in part so that it can be tied to teacher evaluation. So that's why we distinguish between district and state end of course exams. The district end of course are exams that are for courses that are not covered by the state end of course exams. So you see the sort of limited list of state end of course exams here. That changes somewhat every year. Of course, old FCAT, but now Florida Standards Assessment is the main one for English language arts, reading. We have the PSAT, which we administered on campus today. And then last week we did ACT, SAT. We'll have other testing dates for those assessments for College Board, college admissions exams. And then, of course, the Armed Services Vocational Assessment Battery, the Armed Services test. Almost done, and I'm almost there. I got 4 minutes left. I'm so excited. In terms of communication, again, not an exhaustive list, but some things that we do to communicate regularly with parents and students. Nothing beats the teacher phone call, email, or text. We found out from the quarantine in quarter 4 of 2020 that, texting parents was a useful tool. It works just as well as it does with your friends. You don't have to answer them when they text you, but you can answer them eventually. Report cards and progress reports, of course, parent-teacher conferences and success plan meetings. Those success plans are for interventions for students who are struggling. There's a new feature that the district added for during the quarantine, but we're keeping on our website. You'll see, many of you have probably already used it. It's called Let's Talk. And so if you have a question for us, you go on to our website, click on that Let's Talk link, and you can shoot us your questions. And Dr. Dunning will get back to you as soon as possible. Weekly robocalls from Dr. Dunning. I know you look forward to those. Miss Painter, our other assistant principal, does an amazing job with our social media. We have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our website is also a good source of information. I know that our morning news and YouTube videos and whatnot are put out through social media, so you're probably receiving those, parents, to kind of be up to date on information you need to know. Our marquee, which is that billboard on the corner, we use that quite a bit. So look at that. It's updated weekly. My Learning and Canvas announcements. And so parents, you should have a parent account for My Learning. And OOF, our NHQ letters, those are out of field or non-highly qualified. Those are what I was talking about before with parents' rights to be notified about teachers whose licensure is pending. We have a slide scroll in the cafeteria that's working, and so it's like a PowerPoint, but it has big announcements on it that we put up for the students to see now. We send out regularly recruiting postcards to try to get new parents to opportunities at KTech. And then we do a lot of work with recruiting with middle schools and presentations out there with our ambassadors who we met with today to try to, again, recruit families. That's Title I in a nutshell. Thank you for joining me. I have opportunity for a few questions here if you have any. Otherwise, I will see you on Mr. Johnson's Zoom for the beginning of the college financial aid night. I'll stop sharing my screen. Yeah. Any questions from anyone? All right, so you do have to go click on get out of this room and then go click on the other link to join the other meeting. Thank you so much. You can always email me too if you wanted to send some questions as well. All right, thank you, everyone.